Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another sofa safari. Thanks for joining us again. My name is Brad. I'm going to be guiding you today. We've got Stu behind the camera, Trevor on the tracker seat today, and Janine on the back with comms and looking beautiful. We've also got Tom, Ryan, Brandon and Sandra on the other vehicle today. So we decided we're going to start the drive at Rock Lodge. For those of you who are not familiar with it, we are perched upon a magnificent granite kopje. Absolute splendid views of the Lowveld. Way in the distance down there we've got the Limbomba mountain range. That's pretty much the extent of the whole park itself, including the Kruger National Park. And then to the west we've got the Drakensberg mountain range that stretches all the way from the Eastern Cape, about 1,000 kilometers long. The biggest peaks are in the KwaZulu-Natal area around the Lesotho border. But around this area here we get towards the northeastern extent, the Blood River Canyon, where it breaks open into a beautiful canyon. It's one of the largest canyons in the world, actually, the third largest and the deepest river in a canyon in the world. So yeah, quite amazing. There's a little route around there called the Panorama Route. Quite a nice, interesting tourist attraction as well. But yeah, I think let's get ready. Let's get started, eh? Cool. And then guys, just remember when we are going out there, you can feel free to ask us any questions as we're going along, and then when we do switch over, remember to also join on to the other guys, or connect to their group. All right, let's do this. Follow me. Alrighty.
Afternoon, everybody. Let's go.
Always quite a nice place to start here at Rock. Sometimes we get a nice little pre-game viewing, being able to scan the horizon. Sometimes you spot all the animals before we even go out, and pretty much our drive's already done for us. Eh? But yeah, I think let's get started, shall we? Down rock? Down rock? No one up down rock? I don't think anyone's coming up.
Started driving in the afternoon. Beautiful views. Adrenaline rush to start driving the down rock.
clip springers jumping around there. Not many on the property actually. I think the last count they said there was 9. I think they're mostly around these rocky koppies here by Rock Lodge.
Hey,
Up our senses again. We're looking for animals. Good to keep the nose open, ears listening. Yeah, sometimes not just seeing is believing, but smelling and hearing is also believing out in the bush, you know.
Crossing out to our left hand side.
Here we go.
Yeah. Big
Hey, brilliant. Let's try and get an angle in there.
Yeah.
Looks like he's moving,
Yeah, it's moving
kind of north, eh? Yeah.
Always such a lovely way to start a drive in the afternoon. Get tracks, finding nice early bulls in the afternoon in the clearings close to the lodge. It's a very special way to start your afternoon.
We're gonna get him nice here
Lovely
on the
big tusker.
corner. Big boy. Hey. Head shake. Beautiful. He's got an ear piercing, this guy. It's a nice characteristic mark for us to tell him apart from the others, that little hole in his ear. Could have been from another elephant poking a tusk, or possibly even a tree maybe running or something like that. Seem to always have Rock Lodge in the background. Very, very cool.
Yeah. Backfire there. Lovely group of impala here. You may have heard, perhaps, these birds making a sound like a sound. Often when we're in the bush, we always listen for the sound. You may hear it now, but there's a bird called a red-billed oxpecker, and often they're feeding off impala, any herbivores that may carry ticks or parasites. And often to us that's a warning in the bush. So if we're walking or we're tracking and we hear the sound, it's an early alarm call for us to be respectful and pay attention to what we're doing. In this case, it was this group of impala on this side. You don't really hear them around the elephants because they're hides are so thick they don't really get the ticks that they feed on. You can see he's possibly going to feed on some grass around the termite mound. Often termite mounds, especially coming towards the end of summer, they are nutrient pools. More palatable grasses grow there. So this time of the year they'll try focus a lot of the grass around the termite mounds because they're more nutrient rich. Often your buffalo, your rhinos, your hippos will feed around these termite mounds as well as the elephants. We often wonder, how do they know the difference between the how tasty one grass is versus the other? But they obviously have a scent and a way to do it.
Our elephants also, being Mother Nature's bulldozers, regulate the balance between the grass and the trees. In some cases, some of these trees can become encroached and very thick. Elephants help thin them out a bit and then maintain that balance with the grass. Essentially what will happen if these encroached trees become too thick, they block the light, the grass dies underneath, cause some adverse reaction there. The elephants are helping by clearing out the bush. So the bush needs the elephants just as much as they need the bush. Alright.
Right, let's head down here and then go around the impala so we don't flush them.
Alright.
Always a nice way to start.
Lovely way.
Yeah, go around.
One straddling female that he's just herding back into the group now. You can see the male impalas are incredibly territorial this time of the year. A lot of hormones racing in their bodies right now. Oh,
Look, grasshopper visitor.
Grasshopper. Yeah, so they actually keep the females nice and tight within his group. Then he's got a better chance of mating with them when they're in his territory. But it's really up to the females at the end of the day, moving between males' territories, so it's really up to him to try and keep them there for as long as he can.
That grasshopper was huge. What was it, Brad?
I didn't get quite a good look at it. I don't know if you got a good look there, Jim.
I got a brief view of it as it landed and took off. It might have been one of the pyromorphic grasshoppers, but I saw it very, very quickly. It just sort of looked like a bird landing. I'll try and look back in the video and try to identify it too. You're right, it was quite big.
Sometimes they don't hit the vehicle. They hit quite a big bruise.
Yeah. Afternoon meal.
Yeah. like the first one that's ever stood still for me. They usually fly away, so I had to stop for that one.
Buffalo in here. Maybe come back in here.
This side. Very, very cool. We haven't actually been seeing much buffalo these couple of past weeks actually. We haven't had any real big herds coming through that we've known about. In winter, however, they do tend to congregate. This just looks like one of the Duggar boys or one of the lone males. Better angle than this, terrible.
Yeah, I think we're right there.
Got it there, Steve. Oh, he's got a nice ox picker on his boss. That middle section of horn, the thicker part on the top of his head, we call the boss. Very pronounced, very thick on the males, not so much on the females. Much more flattened on the top for the females. The fact that he's alone, very unlikely to be a female. Most of the big males are going to be alone. So he's got quite tatty ears. He's been in a couple of fights. His horns have worn away quite a bit. He's quite an old boy. We do call them Duggar boys when they get to this age because their hair starts to thin out. Become a little bit more sensitive to the sun, so they tend to cover themselves in mud quite often. Most of the time you'll see mud caked on their bodies. Also helps with parasite removal, crusting the ticks, and then when they go and scratch on a tree, the ticks fall off with the mud. So Richard says we have to be careful, lads. He's watching us. Yeah, they always look at you.
A bit like the buffalo. They always look at you like you owe them something.
Yeah.
And, often when we're walking or tracking in the bush, this is the one we watch out for. Even though he may look a little bit docile, he'll definitely teach you how to climb a tree at speed. But we have huge respect to these guys, and as I mentioned a little bit earlier about the oxpeckers, it's a perfect example. We're tracking or walking in the bush, we hear an oxpecker, gives us an early warning, and that's one of the things that is so important, is pay attention in the bush to the sounds and the smells. Don't just ignore what you're hearing, investigate and be cautious, and then you don't have to have an argument with 1,000 kilograms of attitude. You're letting be.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's go see what else we can find.
Yeah. Let's see what's
Stand
there.
down full on. guys, what we're going to do, Brad did mention something about a surprise. We want to show you something quickly of what's going to hopefully bring us to the surprise this morning. While we were out on patrol this morning, we found a very distinct drag mark, so a particular, possibly from a leopard that had killed something. So come have a look here. I want to show you about this drag mark and what we're looking for. So while we're driving along, we came across, you can see over here, this is the actual drag mark over here. So we first check around and to try and investigate what had happened here. And it seems that a female leopard has killed an impala. We have a look here, the legs from where she dragged. Here's the upper body and the shoulder part. Here's the leopard track over here. She's killed at that side and actually dragged it across the road in that direction there. Stu will turn and show you actually where the grass is flattened. So when we process something like this, we've always got to be so cautious. Obviously, once we've analyzed the track, and you can see there in this particular area here where the grass is flattened where she dragged it through. So during the day, we followed up a little bit, and we have managed to find this animal. But these are different ways as we continually discuss about how we find animals. Now, if you just drive along here, you could miss this so easily. So these are things we're always looking out for. One has another animal walked on top of it to try to determine the age of it. Where in this case this morning, this was perfect. There was no loose sand particles from the wind, no other animals. So this particular female leopard is dragged a kill that way. Let's climb back on the vehicle and drive in and see what we can find.
Hold on tight. Watch your heads.
Got your heads. Female leopard there, guys.
See it from there. See there. Wow. So this is Tlganisa, and cubs should be around too.
Yeah, they're about almost 13, 14 weeks old now, and we're going to listen to hear if we can see them. I think they're on the Nyama here, huh?
Maybe there,
Yeah, go a little bit forward. Let's see if we can get a gap there.
So yeah, just for sensitive viewers, the carcass is open, so yeah, if you are sensitive, just be wary. But yeah, you can see it's a male impala that she's killed. The cubs just got a little frightened as I broke a little branch here, but I'm sure they'll be back now. I think one's peeking its head around the corner. I think they were busy feeding. There we go. Yeah, we were just saying how relaxed these cubs have been. You know, even despite we not having guests, you know, us still getting out here is all that it's needed really to keep these little cubs habituated and relaxed. So I'm not sure if you folks can see there where that cub is, but if you look at the impala's head, straight above it on the right, more along the nostril side in a straight line going up, there's a small bush. It's virtually tucked in that bush, not far from the head of the impala at all actually, but so camouflaged. There we go. I think their bellies will force them to come back again. I don't know if you can see on the, oh there we go. You can see on the belly of the impala, the mother has plucked some of the fur out to gain access to the carcass.
Perhaps
Um,
going up the tree.
you can see the cubs just all of a sudden gone up this tree here for some reason. We are hearing some noises in the brush not far from here. So we were just wondering what's going on, what is possibly coming this way. Instinctively the babies will climb trees if they sense any kind of threat immediately. But the mom is much more on the offensive when she has cubs. But you know, we're not too sure about what's actually here. Just going to reposition slightly, folks, get a better view there. It's gonna... Where is it going now?
Let's see if it's gone to mom there.
And it's gone on that.
Left hand down. That.
The other cub.
Yes, the other cub was here.
So the other cub is also around.
As you can see by mom's behavior, mom's not too perturbed about what it is. I actually think, judging by the sound, perhaps a buffalo that's actually walking past there, and naturally the cub's instinct, if it hears a different sound, it will take the reaction off mom straight away and to climb for safety. Mom's a little bit more alert now, she can hear it, but you can see that she's going to investigate to see what it is.
A question from a guest here. Is it unusual for her not to have taken the kill up a tree?
I think the big thing with the male impala, it's very heavy for her. So generally what she will try is to disembowel it, to lighten the weight to the kill, and then she will try her best to hoist it, and then she knows she can feed it leisure, and then the kills and the cub is sort of safe from hyenas. There again, she's relaxed now. Just judging by that sound, I actually think it's a buffalo walking through there. If it was a hyena, or if she thought that there was something really threatening, her body language would have been a lot different. She would have reacted a lot more and possibly try to move the carcass and make a getaway already.
Oh, what a fantastic way to end it off for us. I wonder if the other chaps have got anything surprises on that side. I'm not too sure. Maybe we're going to hand over now and see. Ciao, thanks for, again for watching, folks. I'm just gonna let them know.
Sorry, go again.
Start.
Alright guys, be ready, you guys can start.
Okay, thanks, bro.
Well, good afternoon, guys. Thank you so much for joining us for another afternoon safari with myself being your guide, Ryan on the tracker seat,
Good afternoon.
and then Tom on camera. So we've brought you here to one of my favorite dams, a little bit of a scenic spot. Beautiful afternoon light, and as you can see in the distance there's the hills of Ulusaba. All right, Rock Lodge being on. We're quite a way away from the lodge, but just such an incredibly active spot. We've got constant movement of game backwards and forwards, especially now that it's drying out in the bush. A lot of the smaller water holes are evaporated, they've lost water, and this being one of our larger dams still draws a lot of game coming in, and deep enough, as you can see, that we've got a couple of hippos in here. All right, looks like we're trying to get an identification on sex, but it looks potentially like a male and then a youngster, maybe a young female that have frequented this dam here. Nice yawn. All right, the yawn. There we go. Wow. So that was an incredible yawn, guys. So the yawn is a warning. All right, it's a warning to say, anybody else around that is looking at me, guys, I'm planning on thinking about coming out the water, or rather don't approach the water. This is my territory. I don't want you anywhere near. And by exposing those incredible canines, they are showing off to everybody in the area that they are capable and they're armed, all right, and ready to use them if necessary. Incredible weapons. Hippo are statistically Africa's most dangerous mammal. All right, on average killing about 500 people a year. So it's a very bad idea to come walking anywhere near a pond full of hippos, all right, or walking on the riverbeds, especially in early morning or late afternoon, evening, especially when hippos are getting active.
I think hippos are one animal that we're all taught to be careful of. As Brandon says, they're very aggressive and they're bad-tempered. And if you happen to get between a hippo and the water, which it sees, as Brandon said, its territory, but also its safety points, you can find yourself in a bit of trouble. And with Africa being a fairly dry continent, a lot of people, a lot of rural villages are built around large watercourses and dams, and so conflict between people and hippos are inevitable, unfortunately.
All right, guys. We're going to be moving. We've got a little surprise for you guys, so we're going to be moving on from here. Let's see where we're going to take you. So we've brought you over to the Ottawa Pride. We have viewed them on a couple of occasions already, but it seems every time we get to view them, they're displaying typical lion behavior, as in they're flat. All right, you get their name from lying around. But this afternoon we are lucky enough to have them with their heads up. There's quite a few impala. You probably have heard it. There's a lot of snorting that's going on in the background. The impala males are rutting at the moment. The males are fighting for the right to breed with the females, and with that they become stupid. They run around, they become oblivious to everything else, and it allows for excellent opportunities for hunting, especially for lions and for leopards, as you probably saw with Tlganisa, with the big male impala. It's an incredibly good time for hunting, all right, of the impala. So we've got heads up, and we've got two of the youngsters that are very clear out in the open, one just slightly behind the bush, and then what I'll do is I'll relocate onto the other side. We've also got there's two big females and a young male that has also got their heads up, all staring off. Probably heard an impala rutting just in the background there.
Just to give you an idea of how oblivious these male impala become in the month of May, we've done a bit of research in the last few years, and what we found is up to 95% of animals that die in the month of May are male impala. And that's simply because they got something else on the brain.
That's what I was thinking. Let's go around the side. Yeah.
Go back.
But yeah. Wide around everything, sir. Go through. Folks, if you have any questions that you are wanting to post, please don't hesitate. We are here to answer your question, anything relevant pertaining to the sighting, of course. But please post them, and we'll do our best to answer them for you.
Brandon, we've got a question which has been asked a few times over the last few weeks, just regarding the potential danger of being in an open vehicle. Maybe if you could just elaborate on that a little bit, regarding the potential danger.
It's a very good question. Obviously we are quite exposed, especially on the tracker seat there. If the tracker's on there, he is quite exposed. However, we are fortunate in that we have been viewing these animals for a very, very long time. Their mothers, their grandmothers, their great-grandmothers have all been subjected to vehicles moving around the area. And as long as you're respectful and you're aware of their behavior, you won't have a problem. If you're driving towards this animal and you see that they are potentially having a bad day, they will let you know. All right, just their behavior will change. All right, and if you see that, then you back off. Okay, we are, as long as everybody on the vehicle stays seated. Okay, if you are standing up, you break a profile that the animals are used to, and they do see you. They're used to everybody sitting down, and by breaking a profile, they will react to that. So as best as we can, we stay seated. All right, we encourage everybody to stay seated, as well as arms and legs inside the vehicle, so that these animals are seeing us as they are used to seeing us, as in one great profile. You could almost say that we're like a big moving smelly rock in their eyes. That's your name.
Just an update on the Pride themselves. They've had a phenomenal week. Just about every day we've seen them. They've had big full bellies. They had a kill that we unfortunately couldn't get to. It was in quite a dense riverine thicket, but it must have been fairly large, as the whole Pride was there for 2 or 3 days. Maybe something like a young giraffe or a buffalo. But I was fortunate enough to see them stealing a kill from one of our leopards during the week. People often forget that lions are also scavengers in the way that they'll take a chance. Nobody's going to turn up on a free meal, free energy. And so they did steal from the leopard. One of the reasons we were saying Tlganisa needs to get that male impala up in a tree, keep it out of reach of the hyenas for us. So all competitors, not just the hyenas, like we say, as people think.
Ryan, maybe a question for you to answer here, man. Just pertaining to the Ottawa Pride specifically, we've been asked if the Ottawas have any tie to the Mapojos, the famous Mapojos.
They do indeed. They do indeed. The Ottawa Pride is in the documentary. They were one of the prides that 4 males that broke away from Mr. T and Kinky Tail have run. And this lioness, this older lioness that we're looking at, is one of their daughters. So she's one of their daughters. Behind her, the young male, is her son, and he's of Majingilan. So we've got an Ottawa Mapocho Majingilan mix. For anybody that follows the lions, who would have thought? So there's quite a bit of a mix, and the younger cubs belong to the Matimbas. So there you're looking at a Mapocho Ottawa Matimba mix. So a good mixture of all the large coalitions that we know.
Beautiful time of the day. And compare it 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago till now, you'll probably notice that the sun is setting a lot earlier, and we're heading into winter soon, so it's starting to cool up. And we were lucky enough to have their heads up for a short period. And I have mentioned this previously in one of our episodes, where lions will become active when the opportunities present themselves. So especially during the course of the day, it's not uncommon for lions to be active. However, it conserves energy by resting. That's why they spend the greater portion of the day resting, sleeping. Okay, if you're moving around in the course of the day when it's quite warm, it means that you're going to burn off unnecessary amounts of energy. All right, so as best as you can, you try and conserve that energy, because being a hunter doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to go out and be successful every single hunt. Statistically, lions will only kill maybe once out of every 10, 11, 12 tries, okay, and that's actual hunts. So there's a lot of energy expenditure in doing that. So as best as you can, you conserve what energy you can when you can. So the greater proportions or portions of the day are spent sleeping, resting. However, by sleeping, they are very, very light sleepers. They will pick up their heads, or their ears will swivel into noises around. So during the course of the day, they actually are surveying the area by sense, by listening and seeing what kind of activity there is around. Potentially there was a rutting impala that was close by, and that's why they picked up their heads. They've viewed the circumstance, the situation, put their heads down. It's not dark enough yet to hunt. Okay, so they'll potentially start getting a lot more active within the next, say, hour and a half, 2 hours. Now that especially that it's cooling down, that we're going into winter, it's becoming quite chilly in the evenings and in the early mornings. Good time to walk around, because that also means that your body's not heating up quickly and you're not panting to cool down, which is where I was talking about wasting energy. Fantastic, thank you so much. I'll let them know. Just an update from the last sighting that you guys were at with Trevor and Brad. It was a buffalo that came into the sighting. So everybody's fine, the cubs are fine, everybody. It was just a buffalo that came wandering in.
All right, guys, maybe one last question here just before we sign out. This is for Ryan. It's been asked specifically. Is the game viewing better this time of year as opposed to February?
It's a difficult one to answer, simply because in February we've still got a lot of the babies, a lot of the young antelope and so on, which makes it fun. Obviously everybody wants to see a pretty baby, but the vegetation is a little bit thicker then. It is more in our rain time, and so you could look at thicker vegetation, a lot more insects and so on. But yes, this can be a good time of the year as well. As we've mentioned, it's cooler, so a lot more activity. Animals will sometimes be a lot more active later in the mornings and earlier in the evenings. So sometimes the chance of seeing something, more interaction, can be greater. But that changes throughout the year. Every part of the year changes, and that's very much dependent on our rainfall the previous season. If we have poor rain and there's not a lot of vegetation, game viewing can be very easy. If we have a big rainfall, lots of vegetation, lots of load, it can be very difficult to spot and see animals. So very much dependent on our rain. We have had a good rainfall. As you've seen, the dam is nice and full, first time in a good few years. But we can't complain about the game viewing. It's been phenomenal. It's really been good.
And just to elaborate on that, it's every season is special. Whatever time of the year is super special. With February though, it is very warm. So like Ryan was saying, your activity periods are much shorter. Early morning, late afternoon, very late afternoon, not a lot of activity in the day. When we're heading into winter now, you often find animals are more active, especially during the course or the middle of the day. Well, unfortunately, guys, everybody's decided to fall asleep. And it is also unfortunate that we're going to be leaving you for the next couple of days until next week. And please don't forget to log in and stay tuned. All right. And thank you so much again for supporting us, guys. It's much appreciated. Please stay safe during the course of the week and enjoy. Good luck.
See you next week. Let's go.